In 1912, the world was fascinated by a new symbol of human progress, a ship so large, so advanced, that many believed it could never sink. Its name was Titanic. Built by the White Star Line, the ship represented the peak of modern engineering. At the time, it was the largest passenger ship ever constructed. More than 46,000 tons of steel and machinery, stretching over 269 meters long. Inside, Titanic looked more like a floating palace than a ship. First-class passengers walked through grand staircases. Crystal chandeliers lit enormous dining rooms. Luxury suites rivaled the finest hotels in Europe. But Titanic was not only built for luxury, it was built for confidence. Its designers believed the ship was nearly unsinkable. 16 watertight compartments were built into the hull. If water entered one section, the others could seal themselves automatically. This system was supposed to keep the ship afloat even after serious damage. Newspapers praised Titanic as a triumph of engineering. Passengers booked tickets months in advance, and on April 10, 1912, the ship prepared to begin its first journey, from Southampton, England, to New York City. No one boarding the ship that morning believed they were stepping into history. Life on the Titanic was very different depending on where you stood on the ship. For first-class passengers, the experience was extraordinary. Wealthy families dined on multi-course meals served by uniformed staff. Music played softly inside elegant lounges. Passengers walked along the upper decks, watching the endless Atlantic Ocean. But below those luxury decks, the reality was different. Third-class passengers lived in crowded cabins. Many of them were immigrants traveling to America, families hoping for a better life. They carried dreams of opportunity, of new beginnings. Despite the differences in comfort, everyone on board shared the same destination, New York. And for the first 4 days, the journey seemed perfect. The sea was calm, the weather was clear, and Titanic moved confidently across the Atlantic. But far ahead, something invisible waited in the dark waters. On April 14, 1912, several warning messages arrived at the Titanic. Other ships nearby had reported large icebergs in the area. Some of those warnings were received by the radio operators, but the ship continued forward at nearly full speed. The night was unusually calm. The ocean looked like black glass. Without waves, icebergs were much harder to see. High above the deck, 2 crew members watched the dark horizon from the crow's nest. Their job was simple: spot danger before it reached the ship. But on that night, visibility was poor, and the binoculars normally used for spotting icebergs were missing. The Titanic was now racing through icy waters, almost blind. At 11:40 p.m., a dark shape suddenly appeared ahead. "Iceberg, right ahead!" The warning came too late. The crew attempted to turn the ship. Engines reversed. The massive vessel slowly changed direction. But Titanic was simply too large. The iceberg scraped along the ship's side. Steel plates bent inward, rivets snapped, and beneath the waterline, several compartments were torn open. At first, many passengers didn't realize what had happened. The ship didn't immediately stop. There was no massive explosion, no dramatic crash, just a long, quiet scraping sound. But deep inside the hull, freezing Atlantic water was already pouring in, and engineers quickly realized something terrifying. Too many compartments had been damaged. Titanic could float with 4 flooded compartments, but now 6 were filling with water. The ship was doomed. When Titanic finally disappeared beneath the ocean, the night became silent. Hundreds of people were now floating in the freezing Atlantic water. The temperature of the ocean that night was close to -2 degrees Celsius, cold enough to stop the human body within minutes. Most people who entered the water didn't survive for long. Some tried to hold on to floating debris. Others clung to pieces of wood or furniture that had fallen from the ship. But the cold was relentless. Within minutes, muscles began to fail, breathing became difficult, and slowly, voices calling for help began to disappear into the darkness. From the lifeboats nearby, survivors could hear the cries, hundreds of voices echoing across the water. But many lifeboats were afraid to return. They feared the desperate crowd might pull them under, so they waited. And in less than an hour, the ocean became quiet again. Far away in the North Atlantic, another ship was listening. Its name was Carpathia. Shortly after midnight, its radio operator received Titanic's distress signal, SOS. The message spread quickly across the ship. The captain immediately changed course. Carpathia pushed its engines beyond normal limits, racing through the icy ocean toward the last known position of Titanic. But the distance was enormous, nearly 60 miles away. It would take hours to reach the survivors. Meanwhile, the lifeboats drifted silently in the darkness. People waited, shivering, praying, hoping the rescue ship would arrive before the cold claimed more lives. Finally, at around 4 in the morning, lights appeared on the horizon. Carpathia had arrived. As the sun slowly began to rise, Carpathia started rescuing survivors. One by one, lifeboats approached the ship. People were pulled aboard with ropes and ladders. Many were exhausted. Many were injured. Some were still in shock. Wrapped in blankets, survivors sat silently on the deck, watching the empty ocean where Titanic had disappeared just hours earlier. Families searched desperately for loved ones. Some reunions ended in tears of relief. Others ended in heartbreaking silence. Out of more than 2,200 people on board Titanic, only about 700 survived. More than 1,500 were lost forever in the freezing Atlantic. The disaster shocked the entire world, and questions began immediately. How could the most advanced ship on Earth sink on its very first voyage?